Hey everybody, welcome to the final episode of Too Much CGI. I'm Bill. That's right, Scott has ran off with my girl. We are having a major fight. We are ending things on terrible, terrible terms.
It was only a matter of time.
Yeah, it was a matter of time. We never really did like each other.
You can keep up appearances for so long, but after a while, I mean, shit wears thin.
Yeah, we can't do it like the Rolling Stones do, how Mick Jagger and Keith Richards hate each other, or Joe Perry and Steven Tyler hate each other. We just can't continue to work together.
I mean, this bullshit was one thing over Zoom, but now we're face to face, 4 weeks in a row? Fuck this.
That's what killed us. That was the fatal blow. We decided to do this in person.
It was really a last-ditch effort to save what was already a dying thing.
Yeah.
But now we know.
Oh, but there's good news.
On the other side of the coin.
We reunited and we're starting a new show. Well, we're not technically starting a new show. We're restarting this show. We talked about it before. We had an idea about changing the name because so many people really didn't understand that the title Too Much CGI was a tongue-in-cheek kind of name. So we started thinking about, well, what do we do to, try to let people know that we're not just about CGI? We said, well, maybe it's time for a name change.
Yeah. And we workshopped a few things, and with the new format and us talking a lot about news, and we often joked, I think we riffed on like Jay Leno a lot. Like, did you hear about this? Did you hear about this? Did you hear about this? Eh? So we actually are changing the name to Did You Hear About This?
And we got a cool logo, and that's all that matters. When it looks good in a logo, you know you got a good name.
That's the final litmus test.
We didn't even have to think on that one too hard. It's like it just kind of came to us off one episode before.
Yeah,
we're lucky because getting a podcast name, and I think it is a good name. People might hear it and go, oh, I don't like it. Well, it's changed. You'll get used to it because it's actually a great name. Falls in line with every other podcast out there because they all have quirky names. So I think we picked a good name.
I also like it because it does have a question mark in it. And one of our stories, like we were talking about Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and the title Who Framed Roger Rabbit didn't have a question mark in the title because there's an old Hollywood wives' tale that having a question mark in your title is bad luck. We're putting it right in the fucking title of the show.
Title. Fearless. We are fearless.
I'm staring down the barrel of that gun.
Well, to let you all know, we need your support. As always, let people know about the name change. Go to Twitter. Go to all your social medias like you've been doing and just let everybody know about us.
Yeah. We're still growing it. A new name. By the way, next week when you see the new name, don't think, what the fuck is this, and delete us off of your favorites.
Yeah.
Keep listening. Again, we talked about changing. We talked about growing. If you're not changing, you're stagnant. So Here we go, into the brave new world.
Well, you said it really well last time. We're not changing that much. We're still covering stories. We're still going off on our tangents, but they're going to be a little bit more related to the stories usually.
Yeah.
And we'll still have some fuck-upperies and some of the fun things that we, generally do.
Yeah. And we'll still do main topics because did you hear about that?
Yeah. I like how we were saying we have lead stories now, like we're professional, journalists. Today's lead story. The Coyote vs. Acme movie has been canceled. You're so fucking silly.
Actually, the lead story there would be if it actually comes out and sees the light of day.
I think it's gone. I think it's been deleted.
Done.
Well, before we kick off and go to our stories, I think you said we do have a fuck-uppery.
Yeah. Listening back to last week, I used the word antagonist and protagonist. Wrong both times.
Wrong, sir.
You reversed it.
Yeah, I reversed it. And whatever. That's something stupid that I heard. But I was talking about Christopher Lloyd in that Star Wars episode, and I was like, and he was the I said he was the protagonist all along. But he wasn't. He was the antagonist.
I was the antagonist, you asshole.
I mean, to be fair, I couldn't understand what the fuck he was saying.
I just listened to his voice the other day on an animated thing. What the fuck was I watching? I can't remember. He sounded clear as hell. So I was like, oh, I'm such a dick. I was making fun of how bad he sounded on Star Wars, but this other new animated thing, he sounded perfectly fine. Certainly an old man's voice, but he enunciated. But he just had a bad day on that Star Wars day.
You poor old man.
Well, it's much easier to sit here in front of a microphone like we are and just record voiceover than it is to move and act and emote and project. He doesn't have all that in him, it seems.
Oh, you know what? I actually just remembered. I got a fuck-uppery from Brother Steve sent me one. I totally forgot to write it down, and it just popped into my head. Apparently, Scott, you said Kenny. got
I
a
know,
ninja.
that was the other fuck up. Butters got hit in the eye with the throwing star.
Yeah, I don't remember anything
He
about.
did. And they dressed him up like a dog so they can take him to a vet instead of taking him to a doctor. Because if they took him to a doctor, they were going to get in trouble. So they dressed him up like a dog and took him to a vet. Or that was the plan. But it was always Butters. It was never Kenny.
No.
That was another fuck-uppery.
That one went right by me because I never saw that episode.
Well, thank you, Brother Steve, for pointing out my ineptitude.
He's so good at it and so quick. Like before I wake up on Monday morning, I got messages from Steve going, "Hey, these are the fuck ups." And I was like, damn, I don't even get to wake up and like stretch out. I'm already getting criticized right out of the, like I wake up and there it is. Boom. You fucked up. Oh,
Let us breathe, Steve. Let me take a morning piss first, all right?
we're asking for fuck upperies and then we get mad when we get them.
Indignant, as a matter of fact. Downright indignant.
If they're about me, you can forget them. If they're about Scott, send them in.
Bill loves it.
Oh, I do.
Hey, I forgot something.
What?
Happy belated May the 4th.
Oh, shit. That passes me every time.
May the 4th and Revenge of the 5th.
No, Revenge of the 5th.
It's kicked around.
Trying to make Revenge of the 5th happen.
For a movie that wasn't even that great.
Well, somebody thinks it's great.
Well, the prequel kids are now like in their 30s. That's what they grew up with. So, but I never really cared for the prequels.
Well, this is a great way to kick into our first segment because we're going to be talking about this summer's Blockbusters season may be a complete dud. Did you know that one of the things going out is a reissue of the prequels, or at least a reissue of the first prequel?
Yes, I did know that. And in fact, on May 4th, this past Saturday, some theaters ran all 9 movies. And you can buy one ticket and go in and watch all 9 movies. I got to tell you, 9 movies, that's a lot of fucking movie to watch.
That's too much Star Wars.
Yeah.
Ugh. I mean, who's that big a fan of the prequels?
Hello.
Well, you said that they're getting popular again. I guess I get it because my son, he was the age of, 8 when they started to come out? And now he's almost 21. Like,
They came out in 1998.
okay. Yeah. So he grew up with those. So they're nostalgic to him. We hate them, but maybe the 20-somethings are, hey, we need some good shit. Let's go back to what we grew up on. I'm always amazed by the things that that the kids, know. Like there's a kid I work with. He showed me something he did on his phone, and it was a quote from Iron Man. Tony Stark built these with a box of scraps. And he was mouthing that, in TikTok. And I'm like, that's like a line from my movie. Like, how do you know that? But I guess they did kind of grow up with it. And he's a 20-something kid.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the original Star Wars trilogy came out and it was like about a war in the stars. And then we waited 1998, the prequel episode 1 comes out, and it's about the politics behind the war in the stars. Like, who cared about the Galactic Senate, honestly?
Right. Yeah. And that was so weird because George Lucas was always like, this isn't a sci-fi movie. It's a soap opera in space.
Yeah.
Well, then he went and made 3 completely different movies because those aren't soap operas in space. Those are like, I don't even know what those are. Political thrillers.
I'll say it right now. The absolute best thing about all 3 of the prequel trilogy, Padme Amidala's midriff getting ripped off when she was in the pit on Geonosis.
I don't even remember that. Just ripped it off?
Yeah. You had like a halter top at that point.
That was the slave Leia moment, I guess.
Yes. It was, yeah, you're right.
Huh. Well, if they're reissuing those first 3 movies, how long did it take till they reissued them it was the 90s? Because I was at Penn State. It was like 1997 when they started to put the old original
Special edition?
Yeah, they added that footage in, and there was lines to go see it.
Yeah.
So maybe they think magic can happen again if they do it with the first 3 movies, with the what are they? What are the first?
A New Hope.
No.
The first one.
Yeah, it's Phantom.
Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Revenge of the Sith. Revenge of the Sith is part 3.
Clone Wars.
Clone Wars. Clone Wars?
I don't know. Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So we got episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith.
That doesn't roll off the tongue like it used to. We're just not the fans we used to be. If that's
I really had
that's
to think
hard to state.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let me read this article here. It's from Slash Film. It says Hollywood is staring down the barrel of a brutal box office summer. The summer box office season is off to a challenging start, marked by the underwhelming opening of The Fall Guy, starring
Ryan Gosling.
Did you think that was going to be a hit?
I'll tell you what. The advertising that they did for it made me kind of want to watch it at some point. Like, you were hell-bent against it because it wasn't the original Fall Guy. But seeing Emily Blunt and him do like the circuits and things like that, the media circuit, I was like, yeah, I'll watch this. This could be fun.
I saw nothing interesting.
Nothing.
Not a damn thing. Not
All
a
right.
damn thing. I mean, you might as well take him out and put in Jason Statham and call it The Beekeeper. Like, I don't know what these movies are. It's just action. There doesn't seem to be a plot anymore.
Oh, and I'm not saying that I think that Ryan Gosling being in it has any impact of it being good or bad. You're right. It could be completely interchangeable, but the premise seems good, even though it's not the original premise.
You say so.
I'll watch it.
This is why we're breaking up. All right. It says The Fall Guy opening starring Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt failed to meet expectations with a debut of less than 30 million. Additionally, as we were just talking about, the re-release of Star Wars The Phantom Menace took second place with just under 9 million, highlighting the industry's struggle as ticket sales remain over 20% lower than last year. The lack of a major blockbuster to kick off the season leaves studios pinning their hopes on upcoming films like Despicable Me 4 and Deadpool and Wolverine. Deadpool and Wolverine, I could see doing well.
I could see doing well. But other movies we have coming out this summer, there's like an animated Garfield movie. We have...
Who gives a shit about Garfield anymore? Do kids know what Garfield is?
Yeah, great question. There was a Netflix Garfield cartoon my kids were watching for a while. But yeah, I don't care. Remember when Bill Murray did a Garfield cartoon?
Yeah.
How did that fucking do?
Yeah, I think it made a sequel.
Yeah. There's a Disney Pixar sequel to Inside Out with like the emotions in the girl's head.
Yeah.
That's coming out.
Was that so good that needed a sequel?
Of the Disney Pixar animated movies that came out lately, it was one of the better ones. Did it need a sequel? No. Remember when they did all the direct-to-DVD Disney sequels to like Little Mermaid 2 and Beauty and the Beast 3? And
yeah,
they were shit. Is this going to be better than that? I sure hope so.
Well, I mean, they tried to do it with like Cars. Cars seems like something you could do a sequel with. That other story, Inside Out, didn't seem like it. What other plots, what other storylines could you tell inside that kid's brain?
Well, they're adding a new emotion. They're adding anxiety because she's going through puberty now.
You should have said anxiety and saved us both embarrassment.
So maybe kids that grew up relating to that kid in the first one, they're probably right there at that same stage of life. Maybe they'll relate. But maybe kids at that stage of life aren't going to the movies with their friends to watch fucking animated movies anymore.
Yeah, maybe. All right.
I don't know. But it could do something.
I just wonder if they do any fucking market research anymore.
They're not talking to me.
They're not talking to me either. Who are they talking to?
Yeah, you said they're down 20%. I read an article from maybe 2 weeks ago that was talking about the January through April time slot, year over year. So 2024 over last year, 2023, they were down 21%. So maybe with the Fall Guy coming out now and the re-release of the Phantom Menace, maybe they gained 1% on last year. But the projections for these summer movies coming out, like these ones we're talking about here, in addition to Beetlejuice 2 coming out and some of the other ones, the projections for those movies, regardless of how good they do, they're not going to do better than Oppenheimer and Barbie and that Sound of Freedom movie last year. Like, they kind of came out of nowhere. Nobody expected them to be the mega hits that they all were to their own groups and their own demographics. But these movies coming out, none of them are going to beat that. I think people that are optimistic about what the box office, they think this year, 2024, might end at about $8 billion, which last year, 2023, ended up at like $9 billion. So they'll be down $1 billion. Doesn't sound like a whole lot when you put it like that, but $1 billion is a lot of money.
And the other thing to think about too, Hollywood, LA, right, is so reliant on the movie business. It's like Detroit and the car business.
Yeah.
So you're hearing things now like the whole town's doing bad. And here, I'll read more of this article. The entertainment industry is grappling with ongoing challenges, superhero fatigue, a decline in horror films, and the lingering impact of the SAG and WGA strikes. Hollywood needs to find new strategies, potentially by reducing budgets and investing in premium viewing experiences like IMAX. The industry faces significant uncertainty heading into 2025, hoping for a brighter future. So the whole vibe is down,
Yeah.
And people are leaving. Celebrities are leaving Hollywood. A lot of them are like, it doesn't make sense to be here anymore. We don't like living here. It's too expensive. I just read about Steve-O the other day. He sold his Hollywood Hills home. How do you like that, motherfucker? And he's like, I'm out of Hollywood. And he, maybe some of these guys do it for political reasons, but I think a lot of them do it because it's expensive as shit to live there.
Yeah.
And if you're not getting crazy jackass movie money, which he isn't, he has to go. He can't afford to stay there.
Steve-O never seemed like a Hollywood guy to me anyway. Like, he lived there because he was doing that, but by his nature, he didn't seem like a Hollywood guy to me.
I think a lot of them stay there to be close to doing castings and things like that.
Yeah.
But now we have Zoom. People can do them over Zoom.
Yeah.
There's so much less reason to live in Hollywood unless you work at a studio every day. It makes sense. You leave Hollywood. So Steve-O went to Tennessee, where I'm sure it's a lot cheaper compared to Hollywood.
He seems like a Tennessee, Kentucky guy to me.
Yeah.
Like he belongs maybe Midwest, maybe Chicago guy. I could see him being a Chicago guy. Not a New York, not an LA guy.
Apparently, he moved right into the house next door to Johnny Knoxville. Just kidding.
Oh, that'd be hilarious.
I think they're no, it's Bam Margera who's feuding with them.
Bam, he's local to us. He's down in Westchester.
Right. He's the one who doesn't like Knoxville.
He don't like a lot of people right now. Well, you said in there, about the strike. The article I read was talking about the strike being to blame for really a lack of things coming out between January and April, and they're saying that the timing of the strike ending was going to bring about like a glut of movies from like May on. But again, even with an increased amount of movies, they're not going to topple the multi-billion dollars that those three that I previously mentioned did from last year.
At this point, I'm not even sure great movies can save it anymore. So many more people are interested in what's happening on TikTok and what's happening on, streaming straight to video stuff. So they don't want to go to the theaters.
Yeah. And the ending of this article, the summary of it all was like, while we're not knocking the quality or the projections of what these movies are going to do, it's just not going to stack up to last year. They're saying the focus of this year should be about getting people back into the habit of going to the movies or back into the routine of going to the movies rather than trying to beat anything last year did because it's a long shot. Another thing you read in there that made me laugh and think of something we talked about either last episode or in between last episode and today. Superhero fatigue. We talked last week, one of the last news stories was talking about how projections were that August 27th was going to be one of the greatest days for DC fans because it was projected that James Gunn and the new DCU, Safran and Gunn, were going to release the new photos of the new Superman. What's that kid's name? Corin Sweat?
Corin
Sweat's new Superman. First photos released. Well, guess what? They came out the day after we recorded that show. And I'll tell you what, the comment section of that article, I think it was Entertainment Weekly, not kind.
Not kind.
At all.
Well, see, James Gunn, as we've noted, listens to our show. So when we said that, he was like, I'm going to just troll everybody and release the picture.
Here's a fuck-uppery for you assholes.
Yeah, I'm looking at the picture right now. No, this doesn't move me at all. Nothing about this picture gets me excited. I was going to describe the uniform. Doesn't look new. It looks like something they've had in the last Zack Snyder verse. The S is that original S design, so It's more triangular. Even before the 80s, like it's the Legacy S. I guess that's what it looked like in the very, very old comics.
And in the comics, wasn't the S supposed to be how they spelled Kal-El in Kryptonian?
It stood for shithead. They thought he was a shithead.
Sucks. You suck.
Yeah. They sent him off Krypton because he sucked. He lands here with a big old S. It's like having to yell on your forehead,
It's a scarlet letter.
But then there's something going on in the
Stands for
background.
shame.
Shame. Shame. Shame. Send him to Earth. Get him out of here. Shame. Lands on Earth, and he's the greatest thing ever.
They blew them up.
But you look at his picture here, and he's like casually putting on a boot. As in the background, there's a giant explosion. He's just like, and his eyes are closed, like he's sleeping. Like he looks tired. This looks like a really lazy Superman.
Now, in keeping with the old name of this dying piece of shit, Too Much CGI show, people have said that looks like AI created art.
Yeah, it does. That's true.
But now what I've seen, other people saying that there's actually no CGI used in that photo.
All right. Let's talk about that new statement. So everybody's saying this is no CGI. No, I watched a video the other day, and if I can remember, I'll tag it on the YouTube video, where there's a guy who's commenting on all these directors that are saying this is, a non-CGI movie, and he shows where all the CGI is. So directors are apparently, according to this guy, really interested to hide the fact that things were CGI. He used the example of The Fugitive. Remember that train?
Yeah.
Well, the train didn't work the way it was supposed to, so they did special effects and computer generated things to fake it, and they had everybody on the staff say it was a real train. So there's all kinds of press, more like marketing things that they say, fib about that, fib about this, say it was all in camera, say it was all that. So the Oppenheimer shit.
I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah, like they said the same thing about
that.
It
was all practical.
It wasn't.
Yeah, they talked about using forced perspective and doing, but then it came out. I believe what they're trying to do is just reframe what CGI means and redefine it, because now they're calling it like silent CGI.
Invisible
CGI, yeah. And just trying to redefine what CGI even is. But I guess if you're going to move the goalposts.
Yeah, it's just semantics. There's visual effects, there's special effects, and there's CGI, right? There's things you do with, you make a car flip because Superman just punched it. You take a crane and you lift it and you flip it and you drop it. And you go, that's a special effect or a visual effect. I can't even keep them all straight.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of times that they use computers to just blend out a background, put in something else, a different skyscraper. Yeah. And they're saying no CGI was done. And it's like, well, yes, there is. Like that counts as it's a computer generated graphic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I like when CGI is not used so heavily because they got real into making everything CGI.
Well, some of the positive things people were saying about this photo of the new Corin Sweat in the new Superman outfit, and there weren't many, but people were pointing out that the explosion in the background, the big pink explosion, it does show reflected on his skin on the ground. And they were like, I think this is practical with like practical lighting on the set. It could just be that with all this new AI technology, it's just gotten better to the point where things before we would look at and say, oh, this is clearly CGI because of shadow lines or this or that or angles, or it got better and now it's just outsmarting what we used to look for.
You went exactly where I was going to drive us to.
Okay.
That's what I think they're saying. No CGI. Yeah, there is. It's in the background. It's in that paneling that you use.
Right.
But you shot it with a camera and you don't have to put any CGI into what you shot. But the CGI is being projected against the wall that you're filming.
Right.
Why aren't we counting that as CGI?
That explosion was not in that studio.
I mean, that is a visual effect, therefore not technically CGI, but I think it's a blend of CGI.
Not just a visual effect created on a computer.
Yeah. I mean, this is so stupid. Everybody wants to now say, oh, we don't do CGI, because it's got such a bad name, because it's been overused.
Maybe it's not done in post like the way it used to be. Maybe that's what they're considering a CGI.
I guess.
But again, it's all semantics, like you said.
Bullshit.
We can redefine it however you want, but that wasn't on set.
Yeah. Well, James Gunn must have had a bad week, because this is like his week. He's like, I'm going to put this picture out. Everyone's going to go crazy. And everybody hated it. Everybody just thought it looked nothing special. And I'm one of them. I looked at it. I went, ugh. First off, I saw Corin Sweat before, and I went, I wouldn't have picked him for Superman. I don't like this guy's face. But I think I'm so used to wanting Christopher Reeves to come back, and I want like somebody who's not like, I don't know, fucking Henry Cavill looking. I want like a baby-faced Superman, I think.
I don't know. I think of everything about the photos, his face, he looks like a Clark Kent to me. I'm
Yeah.
okay with that. It's the drab red. It's not like the bright red, white, and yellow you think of. One thing I'm surprised they kind of kept the underoos on him. He got like the red codpiece on over top of his blue tights.
Did you look at that, huh?
Well,
All right. I didn't.
It was for authenticity.
But yeah, I guess I see what you're saying. Looking at his face, like me saying, well, I'm looking for a baby face Superman because it takes me back to the Christopher Reeve era, which is where I fell in love with Superman. He's going to be a rugged Superman.
He looks like a tired Superman.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, his suit's all dirty. It looks like he just got done with a fight, and now there's a giant explosion outside. He's like, let me put this fucking boot back on. I'm going to go out and do this bullshit again.
He looks like a tired, worn out Superman.
He looks how I feel. He might be more relatable. I might like this Superman. Maybe I looked at this all the wrong way. He looks like a Superman that has the new emotion of anxiety in his head.
Yeah. Yes, you're right.
I'm getting too old for this shit.
All right, I got a bunch of other stories for you here. I want to know what you want to hear about.
Oh, I like these multiple choice.
You do?
Yeah.
All right, we're just going to start with...
You don't always listen, but I like to give the options.
I like when I pick these stories. Sometimes we do them and I go, they were so good in my head. Like I can imagine so much good conversation coming from this topic, and then it just goes... So I don't know if any of these are good, but we'll try. Here's the first batch. Live action Masters of the Universe movie gets theatrical release date. Do you want to hear about that? Live action R-rated Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
We talked about that before. Let's talk more about the Ninja Turtles.
All right. So the Ninja Turtles, they're getting a new live action movie based on The Last Ronin. Do you know that story?
This is what you were talking about where 3 of the brothers die. There's only one left.
Yeah.
He's like the sole survivor.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know the whole story. I watched one of those comic historian shows and I watched how it all ends up. So I know who the last turtle is.
Okay.
But I can see what they're going to try to do. They're going to go in and make you figure it out. And that's kind of cool.
Don't spoil that.
I won't spoil that.
When is this supposed to come out?
Well, why don't I read it to you, sir, and see if my summary tells us. Let me start with the title. Live action R-rated Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie in the works from producer Walter Hamada. Does that name ring a bell? He used to work on DC. I only know his face because he had to do the Johnny Depp trial. He had to show up. He was
so
cold.
He was on Aquaman?
He was like, yeah.
Hey, everybody's famous for something.
Oh, I remember them asking him questions. He was in there with Zoom, and they're like, so can you agree that Johnny Depp tried to kick her off? He's like, dude, can I get out of this thing? Like, no, he didn't do any of that. I want to be done. Don't drag me into this.
He
totally
just
remember
said she
this guy.
shit in the bed. He blamed it on the dog. Let's talk more about that.
The face of this guy, I'm picturing it in my head, just like him going, I have so much more important shit to do. All right. So after the success of last year's animated hit film, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, Paramount Pictures is keeping Turtle Power going by putting a new feature project into development. This one, however, will go beyond the realm of all ages material the longstanding property is known for, and instead go into gritty R-rated territory. Paramount is developing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles The Last Ronin, adapting a popular storyline seen in the recent IDW comics as a live-action feature with the intent of making it R-rated for a mature audience.
Hold on. Is the Turtles license still being held by Nickelodeon?
Well, this said IDW, so I don't know. Maybe they have different, publishing rights goes to cartoon rights goes to Nickelodeon, comic publishing rights goes to IDW. Who knows?
But one thing we know, Nickelodeon doesn't care for a mature audience.
Oh, no, he didn't.
Hi, Dan. What do you want, Dan Schneider? Heard us talking about you. But I will tell you, the story is interesting, but it's not original. If you're a Marvel fan and you liked some of those Marvel stories, like Logan. Logan is based on Old Man Wolverine.
Right.
So it's taking that, I'm not going to spoil anything, guys, but it's taking that concept of like what happens in the future.
Yeah. I never really read, I read some of the original black and white stuff, like when I was a kid, and it was like real edgy, and it was like, this is what the Ninja Turtles came from. I read like the original stuff, but I haven't read comics in years, so Yeah, I'm not at all familiar with this Ronin story.
All of that Ronin story, I believe, was written by Laird and Eastman, the guys
The
that wrote
original,
yeah.
the creators.
So they made this pretty violent. Well, I said no spoilers, but they already said, it's going to be R-rated.
Yeah, I mean, that's what else is it going to be?
But do you think that'll work? This is a kid's franchise. On the screen, it's a kid's franchise. They're finally going to turn this into what the comics used to be, because the comics were brutally bloody and violent, and the cartoon just went the complete opposite way.
I think this has a better chance of working. And let me explain my reason for thinking that. You mentioned Mutant Mayhem came out last year, an animated movie, Mutant Mayhem. It was out when you and I went to go see Across the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
Do you have any interest in seeing that?
No, it looked like they were taking the Across the Spider-Verse formula and just being like, hey, we can do this too.
Have you seen it since it's been out?
I have.
You have?
I actually have. Yeah.
Okay. I had no interest in seeing that because it looked like a kiddie Nickelodeon kids cartoon.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny that I say, like, I wouldn't go watch a cartoon as we went to go watch Across the Spider-Verse, which was Sony's animated Spider-Man movie. But regardless, I digress. I would be more interested in seeing, like, I was a fan of the original live-action Ninja Turtles that came out. Bottom line, I was a fan of those movies. And if this is going to be a live-action R-rated, edgier movie, that might be more in continuation with what I liked when I was a kid. So that might speak to me as an older person that grew up with Ninja Turtles.
Do you think they ought to take the old universe with the Henson puppets, or do you think they ought to take the one that was rebooted? Remember, they had CGI turtles not too long ago, and Megan Fox was in that one.
Yeah.
Or just start a brand new, fresh universe.
When you asked me that question, all I kept thinking was how shitty those turtle costumes were. We could see the guy's face inside the mouth. That's like the still photo I'm seeing is like the guy's eyes like in Donatello's mouth.
Yeah, I like seeing a zipper on the back.
Build off of those stories, maybe just do better costumes.
All right. Yeah, I can't say much more about it because I know how it goes.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. It's like, hey, this worked for Wolverine. Let's try it for Turtles. It's just everybody copies everybody.
Maybe you don't have a dickhead Casey Jones in it too.
No comment.
I know. I knew that was going to happen. Fuck. Well, he can be there. Just do good casting and don't make him a dickhead.
Well, I might as well read the other story, too, because it is in the same kind of world. It's 80 shit coming back. Live-action Masters of the Universe gets a theatrical release date. Long gestating live-action movie is finally ready. Amazon MGM has dated the Mattel film for a June 5th, 2026 worldwide theatrical release. The film will follow, according to its synopsis, 10-year-old Prince Adam, who crashes to Earth in a spaceship and was separated from his magical power sword. Wait a minute, isn't this Superman? The only link to his home on Eternia.
No, it's just Thundercats.
Yeah, might as well be. After tracking it down almost 2 decades later, Prince Adam is whisked back across space to defend his home planet against the evil forces of Skeletor. But to defeat such a powerful villain, Prince Adam will first need to uncover the mysteries of his past and become He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe. So they're even going to try to put him on Earth and start there. So we got a Star-Lord situation.
This feels like Thor.
Or it feels like Thor in reverse, because Thor started on
Earth and he went back to Asgard.
Yeah, like his own Eternia he started on.
Yeah.
That's Asgard, and then he went to Earth.
Right.
Yeah. But remember, the old Masters of the Universe was on Earth too, because they were like, we got to cut the budget. What do we do? Well, shit, let's just shoot it in L.A. and we'll have them all go to Earth.
You mean the one with Dolph Lundgren?
With Dolph Lundgren. And everybody hated that. So even to like risk going back to Earth again is pretty ballsy.
I don't even think I remember that happened on Earth.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. Now that you say it, of course it did. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Is this at all related to what Kevin Smith is doing with his series?
I don't think so.
This is completely different.
This says Travis Knight is directing, whoever the fuck he is.
I mean, it feels kind of shitty that I feel that what Kevin Smith is doing with his Netflix series kind of put Masters of the Universe back on the map and in everybody's forefront of their minds.
You think?
I think so.
Jesus. I love Masters of the Universe, but I watched like 2 seconds of that and forgot it even existed.
But it got people talking about it.
All right. Yeah, he's not getting any credit for it. See, I don't even think there's a Masters of the Universe resurgence. I don't even believe they're making this. Like, that's crazy. This thing has never made money outside of the 80s. They've tried rebooting the series a couple times as cartoons.
Yeah.
Nothing takes.
I saw a toy, like a newer toy, packaged exactly like the way they used to be packaged, like in the clamshell back in the day, hanging at like an Ollie's the other day or some kind of discount store we were in.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't remember this character, but this looks like the art was identical. It was incredible. The hang tag looked identical.
So nostalgia, they put it out for nostalgic reasons. So it's only interesting to people who are our age, and we've already outgrown He-Man.
And to your point, I found it in a discount store, so not boding too well there.
Yeah, I think it's another case of we got this franchise, we paid a lot of money for it, let's try to get our money back, but nobody gives a shit.
Like you said, even that synopsis just sounds, and we talked about this before. Remember, there were all those cartoons that came out. Masters of the Universe was one of the better ones, but we talked about all those 80s cartoons that came out for like one season, maybe 2 seasons, and then it was gone. Maybe it didn't even last a full season. The synopsis you read of this movie, when we joked about it as you were reading it, it sounds carbon copy, cut and paste of every. There's probably 4 other stories that could be identically layered on top of that step for step.
I can't wait to learn how a average boy suddenly finds out he has incredible powers, because that's never been done before.
I wonder if he has a father that he doesn't know about that's present the whole time.
Yeah. Look, your little tiger turns into Battle Cat.
Maybe they'll make it She-Ra so they can troll the male fan base.
Yeah, give it to the patriarchy. And as the segue master, I will move on to my next article. Kristen Stewart says Hollywood is phony for thinking it's doing away with the patriarchy.
Hollywood is phony. Stop the presses.
Yeah, Hollywood is phony.
No shit.
It's all about making fiction. I actually found this kind of interesting. So Kristen Stewart.
Of course, Kristen Stewart, most notably famous for the Twilight series, I guess is where she got her start.
Yeah.
She's done other good things since then.
Yeah, I think she's a good actress.
I do too.
Kristen Stewart recently graced the cover of Porter magazine and called out phony Hollywood for how it often self-congratulates itself for doing away with the patriarchy when in reality, Hollywood has just prioritized a select group of women to operate in the studio world. While progress is being made, Stewart rang the alarm by saying changes for women in Hollywood are not as broad as Hollywood might like to make them out to be. She says, there's a thinking that we can check these little boxes and then do away with the patriarchy and how we're all made of it, Stewart says. It's easy for them to be like, look what we're doing. We're making a Maggie Gyllenhaal movie. We're making a Margot Robbie movie, or Robbie. How do you say her name?
I say Robbie.
Robbie. And you're like, okay, cool. You've chosen 4.
Yeah.
She's got it right. And I'm in all of those women. I love those women, but it feels phony, Stewart continued. If we're congratulating each other for broadening perspective when we haven't really done enough, then we stop broadening. Then, this part really amused me. Stewart has spent the last several years struggling to get financing for her feature directorial debut, The Chronology of Water. She told Variety earlier this year, ahead of the Sundance Film Festival, that she's no longer interested in taking new acting projects until she gets her directorial effort off the ground. She says, I'm going to make this movie before I ever work for someone else, she said. Yeah, I will quit the fucking business. I won't make a fucking another movie until I make this movie. I will tell you that for sure. I think that'll get things going. Ooh, this is like one of those people that say, you know, if Trump becomes president, I'm moving to Canada, and then they don't go. You know, like, you better make this movie or you're never going to work in Hollywood again. You're literally saying that?
It's a bold statement to say because are people beating down your door? I do enjoy you as an actor, sure. But are you in that high demand that you're putting down an ultimatum?
I know.
I better get funding or I'm not. You won't see me again.
I know, her last line. I think that'll get things going. Like, whoa, are you that important?
But you said all of that right after you just said they pick their 4 women, or they have 4 women that they cater to, and then they want to self-congratulate, and that's not enough. But I'm not one of those 4. So I'm gonna be a holdout. You're not gonna see me act until I can direct.
Yeah. Yeah.
What? I don't think she's wrong in what she's saying, and Hollywood certainly is phony, and yeah, I joked about no shit, but anytime somebody does something for the optics of it, and Barbie last year and the the pro-feminist movement. And I honestly think that's part of what happened with She-Hulk, was that Disney and everything Disney's doing and all the backlash they get for being like woke Disney and all that bullshit, I feel like they're doing it to say that they did it, not because they truly believe in what they're doing.
I'm a huge believer in that. I think they did it because they thought it could sell more tickets. I don't think they really have a political agenda. I never trust businesses like that.
Yeah. I feel like that's why DC fell short with Blue Beetle and pushing, they had a Hispanic superhero to attract the Hispanic viewer. They're doing things to market to underrepresented groups. My mind views it as, while that's true, they are underrepresented groups. They're doing it from a marketing perspective of there's untapped earnings, there's untapped money, there's an untapped audience, not that we want to represent so they can see themselves on screen, which is what the artistic view of that would be. They try to use those words and that feeling, but it just feels like a greedy cash grab type move.
It totally does. You didn't do a good story with it, so you basically let the people out to dry.
Yeah.
You know?
Whoever that representation or underrepresentation is, it's just like, oh, if we put someone in that they relate to, it'll be good enough regardless of what the story is or isn't.
And that ties right to her point.
I
Like,
know.
you tried to do the feel good stuff with women, but name 4 women, and she's right. And it's always been that way in Hollywood. There's like 4 women at a time. It's either Julia Roberts and, Meg Ryan. Who, I don't know. I can't think of who it was in Julia Roberts' day. But who are the 4 now? I mean, she named 2 of them.
Yeah.
Probably Emma Stone is another one. But yeah, there's only a handful of women that are really big stars and can lead movies.
Lady Gaga.
Maybe. We'll see. See how she does with the Joker. She's had a couple of hits, but yeah, who else? Yeah, that is true. I mean, I think she's onto something. And I don't know why that is. I have no problem going to see movies with women in them. I understand that sometimes when you get into this world of superheroes, little boys grew up dreaming of being superheroes. So I get that there's more boys who care about the superhero stuff. So make the movies for the demographic watching them. Think about the story and who's watching them. And then you could make some things for the other demographics so some women can have representation. But I do think that there's real data that says what's going to work and what's not going to work. If you try to force things into people's purview that they're just not interested in, it's never going to work.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, little boys like these kind of movies. But there's plenty of non-superhero type movies that women could totally lead in. Could you handle a woman James Bond? I'd have no problem with that.
Yeah.
If they put it in just to be like, we're going to do something political, I got a problem with that.
You know what? You just saying James Bond made me think of Charlie's Angels and the reboot they did with Lucy Liu and Drew Barrymore and Charlie's
Cameron Diaz.
Cameron Diaz, thank you. That was supposed to be like a whole girl power movement. That came out. That was big. I guess the first one came out when I'm thinking of like the 2000s when it was, Spice Girls and girl power and all that. All that was phony.
Yeah, I guess so.
It was all phony. It was all like, oh my God, look how empowered we are and yada yada. And it was just like, this is all popcorn bubbly image that girls are supposed to be. You're trying to draw these lines of what, feminism is supposed to be nowadays. And it was just not. It really didn't empower them, I guess is what I'm saying. They were just filling roles that Hollywood wanted to put out there or that music wanted to put out there.
Yeah, it was like Elizabeth, not Moss, what's her name? Elizabeth, the girl who made Cocaine Bear.
Oh, yeah.
She made her own version of Charlie's Angels, and I read the story on the show that she was like, everybody was taking my version and trying
to make it that
into a feminist, manifesto, and she's like, no, I was just trying to make a cool action movie with females. Right. And she's like, I think that hurt. I think the politics that people put into my movie hurt the movie's box office. I didn't have politics in it, but everybody assigned politics to it. So
another reason James Bond was a good example you brought up. Remember when they put in Dame Judi Dench as M?
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a cool move. Because back in the Sean Connery days, M was like an old British dude. So to make it Dame Judi Dench was huge.
Yeah. Never thought of that. I don't know. I've never had a problem with any of that stuff unless they do it for
the sake of doing it.
The sake of doing it.
Look what we did.
Right.
Which is exactly what Kristen Stewart's saying.
Yeah. And I think she's right. Like, who are the other 4 women?
Aren't we the best? Look what we did.
Right.
All right, guys, let's go golfing.
I was just laughing the other day thinking about, I can't remember if we talked about it on the show or not, but they're retrying Harvey Weinstein. You know about that?
Well, he was acquitted. Isn't that what happened? They appealed his case and he was. What happened?
They found errors in the way that it was prosecuted.
So this is on procedural issues, not that he didn't do it and he wasn't a bad guy acting bad, but they tried it the wrong way procedurally.
Right. So they want to be sure that he's getting a fair, sentence. So they're just going to run through everything again. They know he's guilty, but they're just going to try to figure out how guilty he truly is. And yeah, but how painful that must be to have to bring all that shit back
if
up.
you were a victim, and many people came forward and shared stories of dickhead stuff that Harvey Weinstein did, and they put it all out there. For this to happen and have to go through it again, or have to watch this and have to wait and see how this fucking turns out for this slime ball, that's a shitty thing.
I'm not sure who has to go back and testify, if any of them. But yeah, that would be terrible if all of a sudden it's like, I put this all behind me. Ding dong. Who's here?
Summons.
You've
just been served.
You're doing it again.
I mean, I'm thinking all those depositions would, unless the depositions and how they were attained was part of the procedural problem, I think they'd still be admissible in court if they were done the right way.
I don't know. But back in court, being
That's
retried.
The fucking bureaucracy that we live in, though. That's fucking stupid.
Well, would you rather they didn't go back and make it right? Would you rather we had a system that would go, well, we got close enough?
That's a good question, but I mean, we didn't sentence him to death.
He's in big rich guy jail. Where I was talking last week about the armorer of the Rust movie saying she likes it in prison sometimes. Oh,
that's
good.
Right.
Really glad you like it in prison. All right, let me move on with some other stories. Who do you want to talk about? Michael Douglas? Ryan Gosling again?
No, I'm sick of him. I'm afraid where Michael Douglas is going based on some things he admitted to in the past. So let's hear that.
Oh, what did he admit? I don't know. Michael Douglas, this is from Deadline, everybody. Michael Douglas has shared his thoughts on intimacy coordinators who liaise between the actors and producers while filming sensitive scenes. So the headline is interesting to me, just to know that there's somebody on the set to say, no, that's too much. That's too much tongue. More tongue. Less tongue. What does an intimacy coordinator totally do?
So what I was hinting at before was when Michael Douglas said he had HPV from going down on his wife for too long, and now you're saying too much tongue, not enough tongue.
Oh.
I just love that segue. Well, this kind of goes back to a story you talked about with Anne Hathaway, who had to kiss 12 guys in front of strangers to see about their chemistry test.
Yeah.
I guess this is a better workaround to have somebody coaching them through it.
Well, I did hear a story not too long ago. Carla Gugliona, you know her? I know the name is wrong, but your face was worth $1 million.
Okay, no, I don't
Carla
know that person.
Gugliona, Gugino, Carla. She's been, you know her face. You've seen her for sure, but she did a movie with an old man whose name I'm forgetting. He's one of these guys falling out of Hollywood. And they did the love scene, and he decided to do his thing. And she stopped. And she's like, he's doing this and this and this. And the I can't say the word, intimacy coordinator didn't approve any of this. And he's going, what the fuck? I'm acting like a guy who's turned on. And he basically got in trouble for that. And I wish I could remember the name. So that's how I first became aware that there is such a thing now. So Michael Douglas shares his thoughts on these intimacy coordinators. Although Douglas says he doesn't have to worry about sex scenes, in a new interview, the Fatal Attraction star expressed his opinions on intimacy coordinators on the set of film and TV productions. He says, I'm past the age where I've got to worry about that, but it's interesting with all the intimacy coordinators. He said in an interview with Radio Times, it feels like executives taking control away from filmmakers, but there have been some terrible faux pas and harassment. Douglas acknowledges that bad conduct on the sets while performing intimacy scenes is a real issue, adding, I'm sure there were people that overstepped their boundaries, but before, we seemed to take care of that ourselves. They would get a reputation and that would take care of them. But I talked to the ladies because I did a few of those sexual movies, he corrects himself, and we joke about it now, what it would have been like to have an intimacy coordinator working with us today. So it is a new kind of Hollywood. He doesn't understand it.
So is the intimacy coordinator there to make it believable on set between the two of them? or to make sure nobody pushes any boundaries and goes too far, and is almost more like a liability person so that you can't sue for sexual harassment or potential rape.
Based on that other story I told you, I think it's the latter.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's more of an insurance, kind of thing. They have somebody there to make sure you don't get sued.
So this is like the equivalent of having your parent on the set, making sure they don't go too far.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Because like you said, I'm sure there were dudes who were like, all right, listen, don't touch her anywhere with your hands. And then right away they're, feeling the woman up.
Little handsy.
Yeah, so now this person's there to make sure that doesn't happen. But then I go, what's the director doing? I mean, isn't that the person who should be like, hey, I told you not to do any of that. You're doing it. You got to hire a person called an intimacy coordinator.
Well, those 4 women directors, they'd pull the plug. But these men, they're just a bunch of goddamn pigs.
Pigs. Buenos dias.
Buenos dias.
I like how he said, he goes, yeah, I mean, the shitheads in the past, we kind of let them take care of themselves. Like you do it once, everybody in Hollywood knows you're a shithead. You don't get hired to do those scenes again.
But is that true?
Yeah. Oh, good point. Would Michael lie? He's an actor. Of course he would.
Previous story, we're talking about Harvey Weinstein, who was a producer. He was on set. We need an intimacy coordinator for the producers.
Yeah, we do. That's great. That's what I want to be. What do you do for a living? I'm a intimacy coordinator for producers in Hollywood.
I watch people pork and tell them they're doing it wrong.
Tell them they shouldn't do that after they do it.
Dad, I think he's gonna pork her.
All right, you said you didn't want the Ryan Gosling story, but I'm reading it anyway.
Okay.
All right. Because this would just amuse me. Ryan Gosling turns down roles that are too psychologically twisted for the sake of Eva Mendes, their kids, and what's going to be the best for us. So basically, long story short, he's saying, I don't want to take a role and just get so focused and too deep. Too wrapped up. I don't want to be the next Heath Ledger and the Joker. Like, that's basically what he's implying. No, but that's what he's implying. What's with this guy?
That he and Eva Mendes were married.
What is with that guy, though? Like, really, you're worried about that? Is that really a thing you worry about?
I gotta say this. The guy looks like he's having fun. Between Barbie and between Fall Guy, looks like he's having a good time.
I think I hate him.
You hate him because you ain't him.
Fuckers hate us because they ain't us.
They hate us because we ain't us?
Ooh. Can't deny that. I'd probably like him if I was him. Oh, he's showing up everywhere.
Yeah. A little bit oversaturation, I feel, is my problem with him.
He's been around forever.
He's your Jennifer Coolidge like I am. Like, just seeing too much of her.
Oh, my God.
By the way, Discover's the commercial she's doing. That's the credit card she's doing commercials for.
Oh, not Capital One.
Oh, my God. But not to detract from Ryan Gosling, but he's everywhere. We don't need to talk about him all here.
We'll move on. I just wanted to pick on the perfect human.
Well, people that you do care for, have you heard about the article of Jerry Seinfeld going after Howard Stern?
It's funny you say that.
Is this your story?
My final story.
I didn't know you printed it out.
You sent it over, so I made it the story. You know what? We'll go to that last. I'll just do one last thing before, or one other thing before we go there. So we always talk about Mark Hamill and how much we like his voice as the Joker. And he said he will never do it again because Kevin Conroy died. It was always Batman and the Joker. It was Kevin Conroy as the Batman. It was Mark Hamill as the Joker.
He was going to hang it up with Arkham Asylum 2, the video game.
Well,
he's back.
He's back.
Times must be tough.
Times must be tough. He didn't get the Star Wars money he thought he'd get. So, you ever play that game? It's called Multiverses.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like WB's version of Super Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
I guess they have Conroy as the voice in that. So they said, we want to put the Joker in the game. So Mark Hamill goes, well, I guess if Conroy's in that, I'll be in that. So maybe that's how he sort of
loophole.
Yeah, worked it out.
In a stretch of the imagination, he is a man of his word. I'll give him that.
After Conroy passed in 2022, Hamill announced that he would retire from playing the Joker, saying, without Batman, there is no punchline. Multiverses, the game, seems to have presented him an opportunity to star alongside Conroy one more time, giving fans what might be the last video game the two stars ever share.
I can't believe that happened in 2022 when Conroy died. I remember covering that story on the show. Have we been doing that thing this long?
No. Have we?
It's about time to hang it up.
Remember, everybody, this is our final episode. All right, let's do that final story. It says, Jerry Seinfeld says Howard Stern has been outflanked comedically. What does that mean to you?
I know he said this while talking to Dana Carvey and David Spade on their podcast. And in a way, I read the article thinking that this was a way for Seinfeld to both praise these comedians who have a podcast and also take a shot at Howard for not really being a comedic person. I think he says like, "Oh, didn't Howard start all this whole concept?" But he's been far surpassed. He's not funny. You take yourself too seriously, you're being beaten by these comedians who are truly funny and who people actually want to tune in and listen to.
Right. Yeah, that was the whole point.
In fact, I think Dana Carvey, or maybe it was Spade, talked about how, like, it's not that Howard's not funny, but, like, he plays too much off of Robin Quivers.
Yeah, I can read you some of it. So Jerry Seinfeld pulled no punches when sharing his opinions on comedy, radio, and podcasts. In a new interview with Dana Carvey and David Spade on their Fly on the Wall podcast, he says, Howard Stern invented this, right? As in podcasting, because that's kind of what everybody's saying.
Yeah, we talked about that before.
Seinfeld said of the format, but we're better than him now. Howard is interesting. Howard is a great interviewer, but comedy chops, I mean, can we speak candidly? Now, as a Howard Stern listener who is hanging on just by a thread, just because I want to finish this thing out with the guy, he's not that funny anymore. He really has always been the sum of all his parts. And now he's running on this notion that he is everything. I mean, he never needed Jackie the Joke Man. He never needed Artie Lang. And yeah, I listen to him now and I go, man, you're just not funny. And he really thinks he's hysterical and he thinks he's still relevant. And he doesn't, he pisses on podcasts. He's like so angry that everybody's got a fucking podcast. And he started to comment the other day about, I was like, I used to be special. I had this thing. Like now everybody does it in their fucking bedroom. At the same time, he was like, I used to be special because I could hold off my weight. I never had a weight problem. Now everybody's taking Ozempic. He's just crying. And it's a really annoying show to listen to a guy who just whines all the time. He's whining about everything. He whines about, he can't get his entertainment center to work right. He whines that his streaming, I guess he watches something on Paramount that doesn't stream that well. It's like all these things the guy whines about. It's like, dude, are you forgetting who you are and who you aren't anymore? You're not the guy people relate to.
But he always kind of bitched and moaned about whatever it was. We talked about him bitching and moaning about the FCC and how I'm the underdog and like.
But in that case, we were all underdogs. He was our guy. He was our hero because he was taking on the establishment. Now he's the establishment, essentially. He's Hollywood royalty.
But he's still whining, and now it's annoying. So before, when he was whining about the FCC, at least he had maybe a legitimate gripe. Now it's like, oh, I can't get my entertainment center to work in my multi-million-dollar home.
Yeah. It's the biggest crybaby you've ever seen. I mean, he's no longer pushing the envelope. There's nothing for him to push. He announced that he's a woke, guy. He believes he is. He doesn't really truly know the definition, but it's whatever. He says what he says. And yeah, it's a different fucking show. Everybody's talking about it lately. They're like, what happened to Howard Stern? Well, he didn't want to get Me Too'd. He wanted to change the format, not do this thing he, was always doing. So he positioned himself as an interviewer. And it took off to a degree. Remember, he wrote his book. He just interviewed Biden.
I know. I saw that.
But at the end of the day, this guy's completely out of touch and nobody thinks about him anymore. So
that's what he's bitching about.
Yeah.
It's not about podcasts. It's not that people are watching them. It's people aren't watching him or listening.
And his narcissism just says like, I'm super famous. Everybody knows me. I'm like, I don't think you have 8,000 listeners at this point. I don't even know how many listeners you have.
Well, I shared before.
Nobody talks about him.
I walked away 12 years ago. I went to Satellite, and then I was with Satellite for a while when it was Sirius. I was gone before Sirius and XM merged, but yeah, I don't feel like I'm missing anything. Like you tell me a few things. I see some interviews he has that pop up on YouTube every now and again, but it's just like, yeah, okay, like you used to be the edgy guy, the funny edgy. You were funny because you would say edgy things, and now it's just kind of sterile.
Yeah, it's sad. It really is. Things change,
yeah.
But when you don't realize what you have become, you're as bad as the people you made fun of. He used to make fun of Imus with, he was vicious. And now he should be made fun of as bad as he made fun of Imus because he's just as pathetic.
And I will say this, if he hadn't changed, like, I don't like what it's become from what little I see of it, but if he was still this trying to do the same shit and pick fights with, like, Rosie O'Donnell and, like, anybody else, like, that would be pretty fucking sad to watch too.
Yeah.
So, like, he had to change, but what he changed into, it may as well have been him still doing the same thing. It's equally as sad as if he tried to keep the show going the same way. Do you think he should have hung it up already?
Yeah.
What is he, like 72?
Oh, yeah, he should have hung it up. But he needs audience.
He can't. He's addicted to the attention.
Yeah.
He's addicted to the idea of how many people are watching him. But to your point, it's certainly dwindled over the years.
One thing he's really good at is figuring out who should be in his orbit, right? Only people that he is good enough to beat up. He's never had anybody. Once Artie said, I've had enough of this. Like, there's times you could listen to Artie go, all right.
Bro? You're going to call me bro?
You remember that? Yeah.
That was great.
You're like, okay, this is exactly where Artie figured out that his idol is an asshole, right?
Never meet your heroes.
Yeah. So other than Artie, he never had anybody that he couldn't out-argue, out-scream over. And he would always place people around him that were funny, but could never, ever be funnier than him in his mind.
No, because when Jackie went away, he went away kind of behind the scenes, and Howard spun the narrative around that. Jackie's greedy, Jackie's this, Jackie's that, when he was getting taken advantage of and screwed over.
Yeah.
Now, we can go back and talk about, like, did he sign a bad deal? I mean, the reason he was in the dark for those E episodes back in the day was that he wasn't willing to sign a bad deal.
Right.
So they couldn't show his image on television.
Right.
And even that, Howard spun into Jackie's greedy. He's not willing to play ball and this and that.
So, I have a light friendship with Jackie. He told me enough of that story that he's like, the dude made me sound so fucking cheap. But the reality was I was so underpaid as a writer on the biggest show in the world that I just wanted comps. Like, I just wanted to be, where I should be.
Right.
And he told me what he was getting paid. And it's just like, dude, that's awful.
I believe that.
Yeah. So I would walk too. But the way that Stern made it sound, like to this day, he's the biggest idiot for leaving the show. Well, you got to get paid. I mean, you got to go somewhere else and try to make that money. If you stay at the Stern show, he's not paying you. You're not going to be able to try out at other places, at other jobs. So he took a risk.
Yeah. And to talk about Artie, I mean, right or wrong, they painted him to be a drug-addled moron. And like after he left, it was like, yeah, we wish him the best. But, he's high. He's an active addiction. He's making bad decisions. He's throwing away the best thing that's ever happened to him. But they were making a dick out of him all the time. Well, I mean, I gotta say, I think Jerry Seinfeld was right on the fucking money with this quote.
Yeah. The weirdest thing to me is Howard thinks he's friends with Seinfeld. That's a name he drops a lot as somebody he cares about and spends time with. Well, that's clearly not the impression Seinfeld has about Howard, because he didn't protect him at all on this.
Yeah, but even what he said in the article, like, well, can we be candid? Like, it sounds like he was going, but did he say more than that?
That's all I got.
He kind of credited Howard for starting this whole thing, which is kind of a stroke that Howard would take that as being like, yeah, I did start this whole thing. I've been saying that for years. But now it sounds like he's trying to play catch up.
Here, I do have more on this. All right, so picking up where I left off, Howard is a great interviewer, but comedy chops, I mean, can we speak candidly? Spade said, sure, while Carvey said, no.
He didn't want to get into it.
They didn't want to, they don't want to be on Howard's bad side. Although I'm not sure being on Howard's bad side now means anything, because who's listening? Well, he got Robin, and Robin is a big part of how he's funny, Carvey said of the Stern co-host Robin Quivers. Seinfeld said that he prefers Fly on the Wall to Howard Stern, the podcast to the Howard Stern show.
Shit talk further. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they're all great, but let's face it, he's been outflanked by some and yourselves, I mean, absolutely, this show, comedy podcasts. This is the best one on the air, he said, because you guys play nice together. It's smooth. You're not jumping on each other, which is annoying to listen to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he kept on beating on Stern. So there goes that friendship.
All right.
But then with a guy like Stern who just lives in this narcissistic world, he probably doesn't even know that Seinfeld doesn't like him.
Well, his inner circle will keep this from him.
Ugh, probably.
That's so weird. Well,
that was it. I mean, Stern is done. Stern really did kick off podcasting, but it's just sad to see him go out in this he's burning away. What's that? Better to burn out than fade away. He's fading away because he's not going out on a high note. He's going out on a whimper.
Well, you either fade away or you live to see yourself become what you hate. which is Don Imus.
Yeah, and he doesn't. Oh God, the hypocrisy.
The
in
morning
everything
zoo
he
guy,
says.
man.
It really is. He really is.
Well, I'll tell you one way we're better. We're ending this fucking show on a high note. We're not fading away. We're pulling the fucking plug. We're going out on our own terms.
I got a high note for you.
What's that? Well, everybody, thanks for listening. It was fun while it lasted. Having said that, tune in next week for an episode of Did You Hear About This?
Did you hear about this? And go ahead and you can check out toomuchcgi.com for now. I'll get the name turned over. Eventually, everything should just sort itself out. I don't think you have to resubscribe to anything.
So, we'll see you next week when you'll be tuning into Did You Hear About This? Too Much CGI? Gone.
Aloha. Auf Wiedersehen. Bonsoir. Sayonara. And all those goodbye things, baby.